Hey guys, thanks for joining us. This is Jay with Power and Performance. I'm here with the godfather of power stroke tuning, Mr. Bill Coron. Any questions, anything that you guys have, we're happy to go through, whether it's anything about tire size, gear ratio, all the way down to injectors, turbochargers, nitrous, tuning, platforms, whatever you got. I mean, heck, we'd even entertain some conversation between why Ford is substantially better than Chevrolet if you wanted to jump into that one.
You're really going to open up a can of worms with that one.
I mean, if I can, I can. Look at that. I'm almost as cute as you now.
Not almost. Give it 20 years. So
there you go.
And for those of you who don't know, we're strictly a Ford-based company. We do Ford tuning for gas and diesel vehicles. And not to say that we're not knowledgeable about some of the things about Cummins or Duramax or anything like that, but we don't tune them. We don't work on them. So if you're looking at, for us to answer questions about that stuff, we can give you some vague generalities, but we would recommend that you talk to people who specifically tune those vehicles. They would be a much better source of information for that.
Plus, when you work on the best, why mess with the rest? I mean, come on.
Well, I do happen to agree with you. So hope everyone's having a good day. Had a good New Year's and Christmas and stuff, and not getting too frosty. The weather here's been pretty crappy all week. So
yeah, although it hasn't been in the 20s this week. So
yeah, but it will be next week.
Right back at it.
I just hope the rain stops before then. So
very true.
Anyway,
what's going on, Joe? Glad you can make it out. I'm glad there's only Fords in your driveway. Hopefully they all start.
Oh, come on. Oop. I'm over here breaking stuff, so just ignore me for a moment. So, what do you want to start off talking about?
Well, let's see.
We got, you can jump into 6-liter stuff. We can jump into 7.3 stuff.
This is true. I would imagine predominantly our viewers are 7.3 base, so anything 7.3 related. So start the conversation with injectors and injector sizing.
One of the questions we do get asked quite often is, what kind of injectors should I run to make X amount of power? And unfortunately, it's a really loaded question. If you're looking to make a target power, that's in the 400 to 450 range, you can most likely get away with that with just a set of injectors. If you're looking to make more than that, there's going to be some more significant upgrades that you're going to need to do. Turbo upgrades, high pressure oil pump upgrades, definitely exhaust upgrades and stuff like that. Our general preference for most people, most of our customers are looking for something that's going to allow them to tow better, maybe get a little more fuel economy, pick up some horsepower, and the old standby really it's just looking at maybe a set of stage 1 injectors, billet turbo wheel, some good tuning, and that'll put you right at the 400 horsepower range, which on a 7.3 is very respectable. It's good torque, it's good pulling torque. EGTs are reasonable. It's an all-around win-win situation for the 90% of our customers. Then we get into the final 10%. We got the sled pull guys, the drag race guys, the street demon guys, and then the ever popular dyno queens.
Very true. Very true.
And what's your favorite combination on let's say you wanted to get 550. What do you see people running lately that are seeing those kind of numbers?
What I ended up doing as of late anyway, the last year or two, is anytime I'm asked this question, someone wants to hit a given horsepower number. They want to hit 550. They want to hit 600. What I always end up facing is that number is just a dyno number. The truck is still going to be used on the street, or if it's a competition vehicle, used at the competition. The dyno number, the accuracy of it is very...
Well, it varies one depending on which dyno you run on. Whether you're running on a loaded dyno or just an unloaded dyno jet. The different dynos, even the loaded dynos, the numbers vary. Not a lot, but a significant amount, significant enough amount. So to go by dyno numbers is kind of pointless in the long run. What you're trying to achieve is a certain amount of performance, and most of that's going to be just the way the truck feels when it drives. You can have a 400, 450 horsepower truck that feels strong because it's actually putting the power to the ground. The torque curve is in a good usable RPM range, and it'll feel better than a 550, 600 horsepower truck that's blowing the power through the transmission, converter's not locking, and stuff like that. So
I couldn't agree with that more, Bill. At the end of the day, to me, there's going to be 4 main combinations. Either A, keep it stock with a tune, like you were saying, stage ones with a Wicked Wheel, upgraded turbo, or just a little upgrade anyway, to kind of help get more air into the motor, get the turbocharger to spool up a little bit faster. A step above that for someone who likes to go out to Mexico and street race or anything along those lines, or that's a weekend warrior type rig, a 250-100 injector with a 38R, billet 38R would be a fantastic combination. Or if you're to go with Charlie Fish and one of the KC series turbos, like the KC 38R, we've seen great stuff out of those. Or a step beyond that, the step 4 is going to be your guys with the 400, 200, 400, 300 injectors. Those I do not under any way recommend to run on the street. I understand that some people can if you keep your foot out of it. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, driving by the gauges isn't enjoyable. And it gets old very fast.
It's not, and despite the few customers out there that like to create huge black clouds when they leave the stoplight, most people don't want that. And it is possible. I mean, I've actually run a set of 400s in my 7.3 for a brief period of time, and was able to tune those down to almost zero smoke. And the truck still had good power, but it's a significant detuning job, and at that point you're losing all the benefits of such a large injector. So unless you're drag racing or sled pulling, and that's usually the only situations we find those injectors in, there's really no reason to run anything that big. On a larger injector, hybrid injectors in the 200, 238, 250 cc range, 80 or 100% nozzles are really good because they atomize better than a larger nozzle. And 2, they lengthen the amount of time the injection event takes to empty the injector, and that actually helps broaden your torque curve. Real short, fast injection events are good for high horsepower, but they don't do much for torque. You either have to have the timing so late that your EGTs completely skyrocket, or you're just going to end up with a high horsepower number, but it's going to be way up in the RPM range, around 3,000 RPM or so. It's not recommended going with bigger nozzles. There's just really not a lot of point in it. As far as injectors go, we've got quite a few vendors that we've dealt with in the past. We've dealt with Swamps in the past. They were some of the first to get in the business. We've dealt Warren Diesel and
good old Reagan.
Yeah. And then, lately we've really settled on our personal preference nowadays is to use full force injectors. And 2 reasons. 1, they have a great warranty. And 2, the results are very repeatable from their injectors, and the variance between their injectors and any set of injectors is extremely small. So I mean basically it's non-existent. And that's a huge thing for us as tuners, because it if you order the same set of injectors, but there's a large degree of variance in the way they're built, and some of them are 2 or 3 or 4% higher or lower than the target volume, it makes tuning considerably more difficult, because then we're having to go back and redo tunes for customers because the injectors were not what they were supposed to be built as. That's a frustrating thing for us, and we love the consistency that we get from full force. So, and that's not to say that other injector companies are not as good, but that's just our personal preference. We've had a very good relationship with them. I think in the last 6 years, I think I've had 2 bad injectors from them.
Yeah, they have very minimal comeback.
So
another thing to note is all of their 6-liter injectors, they are built from brand new Ford cores. So they don't rebuild anything. So if you send in something that's kind of sketchy as it is, you don't have to worry about that through full force. It's all brand new stuff. And 7.3s, they do remanufacture some of them, and you have the option to go either brand new or remanufactured. But the beautiful thing, like Bill was saying a minute ago, is we hardly have any comebacks, whether you go with a new 7.3 injector or go with a used one that has been rebuilt. Both of them from that company have been top notch. One thing that I would like to elaborate on from what Bill was saying is there's a corner of the market inside of injectors for 6 liters where people, they don't quite have the money for a brand new injector, then have it built out like Full Force does and Full Force requires on 6 liters. And that is to keep up their high quality. They do not like returns in any way. And as customers, consumers,
I don't blame them there.
tuners, yeah, we all appreciate that. But an option if you wanted to have a cheaper way to go and you still want bigger injectors, or if you just had new injectors put in your truck and you just want them hogged out to where they're going to have more horsepower, more fuel capability, more displacement, Riken Holder down in Holder's Diesel in, I believe, Sarasota, Florida, fantastic option, and it's going to be a little bit cheaper for you since you are rebuilding used injectors opposed to new.
So Matt, I don't know how to pronounce it, Tonjas, forgive me if I mispronounce your name, has a 2001 7.3 fairly stock, looking at getting a new H-pop, adrenaline or SRP1. Hey Brian. That's a hard question to ask for me because I have a very close personal relationship with Diesel Site. I've known Bob for almost 20 years now, and their products are fantastic. I have absolutely no complaint with it. I've personally tested several of their products, particularly in the H-pop stuff, and I don't see any reason to not recommend the adrenaline. I don't have a lot of experience with the SRP1. I have a lot of customers that have run it. And I've tuned for it, and it seems to work fine. But just knowing the on a warranty standpoint and on a reliability standpoint, and just from sheer test numbers that I've done running an adrenaline on a completely stock truck and seeing the improvement in the drivability and performance, I would definitely recommend the adrenaline. That would be my personal choice. I know, and a lot of things, price weighs in. Price is definitely a consideration, in today's economy, but it's not much more expensive to go with an adrenaline. I don't even think it's any more expensive. I really don't know, but
I'd be surprised if it was.
But that would be my recommendation, is go with the adrenaline. I think you'd be very happy with it.
Even to elaborate off that, I don't have the personal connection to Bob or the Diesel Site crew that Bill has by any extent. And when it comes to the adrenaline pump on a 7.3, anytime any of our customers ask me which pump to go with, I always recommend the adrenaline because it does have a very low failure rate and it does what it needs to do. If you go to a 400 injector, at that point, maybe the adrenaline won't have the volume to keep up. But we've seen up to a 250, 100 without any issue on an adrenaline pump. And I'm sure you guys can comment in under this. If you guys have a larger injector than 250, 100 and you've run the adrenaline, feel free to have the conversation inside of our comment window. That way everyone else can view over what you're saying and what your experiences are. But ours, like Bill said, top notch when it comes to 7.3 high pressure oil pumps. The adrenaline's the way to go.
So basically, Lisa has a question about 08 6.4 liter, looking to run Tyrant tunes. Any thoughts on that? I mean, we honestly have avoided doing the 6.4 tuning and 6.7 tuning for the obvious reason of the EPA is just absolutely hounding everybody. We did a few years back, offer 6.4 tunes, but currently I really don't have any opinion. And while I know the guys at Tyrant, I don't know the quality of their tuning. I mean, have you heard anything about them at all? Or
I've seen a lot of people go that way, but ultimately with us sticking to the 6.0 and 7.3 market,
right?
I feel my opinion on the 6.4 and even 6.7 tuning would be easily trumped by even someone who is just a mild advocate for those platforms.
Right.
I just don't keep current on them.
And he also had a question about, is there any preference over using the SCT Livewire or the Bully Dog GT? The Livewire is, if you're going with SCT, I've never used the Bully Dog GT either, so I don't have an opinion on that. In fact, I think I've only seen one in the last couple of years. Yeah. If anybody's running on the SCT end of things, they're usually running the Livewire, or they're just running a regular X4, or we do have a lot of our customers that will use an X4 to tune the truck, but then they'll use the Insight Pro as their monitoring setup. I do tend to prefer the monitoring setup of the Insight Pro versus the Livewire, just from an ease of navigation and settings retention. I mean, there's a few small things, but most of the customers that we've had when we've compared the SCT versus the Insight Pro, customers have usually chosen to go with the Insight Pro and have just gone with an X4 as their tuning platform.
I've actually used both. Went from a X3, but went from an X3 to the Livewire platform as soon as it came out for a SCT. And I had originally, whenever I was running the X4, I was using it for tuning, like Bill mentioned, and I had an Edge Insight CTS, the original one, as my monitor on the dash. Unplugged the CTS, took the programming off of my X3 from the ECM, and ran nothing but the SCT Livewire. And I did such for, I made it about 3-4 days before the user interface on the SCT absolutely just, it wasn't intuitive to me. And so going back to the Insight, it was a very easy choice for me to do.
But that's the same complaint that I've gotten from a few people that have run that. It doesn't feel natural trying to navigate through the stuff. Changing the display settings is a little difficult. It's a little cumbersome, but yep. I mean, the device works great. And, once you negotiate around through it, and navigate around through it a little bit, and get comfortable with it, it's not a bad device. I found that the Insight was just a little more intuitive, a little more easier to manipulate. So.
Now the X3 and the X4, I do absolutely love for what they are capable of and what they're designed to do. Fantastic on that platform.
Yeah, and and the price is right on them too. So, Bob Wells, any input regarding your experiences working with BTS and/or John Woods? We've worked with both of them. I've worked with Brian at BTS for years. I've worked with John for years, and both of their transmissions are absolutely fantastic. The only complaint anybody ever has about BTS is there's usually a very long lead time on the transmissions to get an appointment to get one done. And I know there's been times where it's been a month or 2 months out. They've been so busy, but I mean, that's a testament to the quality of their product. Everybody goes there. John Woods is the same thing. John Woods Transmissions, he's built the name for himself over the last 8-10 years, and his products have been fantastic. I've had no complaints with it, and I've worked with both of them as far as tuning. We'll tune for their transmissions, but John Wood actually, using our software, tunes for his own transmissions, and so does BTS. BTS has been using our software at least 10 years now, probably more than that, probably going on 13 or 14 years to provide tuning. So, and there's a lot of options there, but the transmissions are fantastic. It really just comes down to personal choice on that one, who you may feel you have a better personality engagement with. I think both of them are top quality transmissions.
You really can't go wrong with either of those guys.
Yeah. And one thing I would add in there too is a lot of people don't know that actually Diesel Sight has been building transmissions as well. They have what they call their legendary transmission, and it's a solid piece. It's actually what I'm running in our Excursion right now. And the Excursion right now is putting out, without adequate tuning, putting out right about 500 horsepower. We're still working out some turbo combinations and a few other things, but the transmission's been fantastic. I think it shifts like a rock, and I don't expect it to have any failures, but even if it does, the warranty on it's fantastic as well. So that's another thought for anybody who's looking for a transmission. And some of it may be coast related. If you're closer to the West Coast, you may go with John Wood. Middle of the country, Brian is a good option. If you're on the East Coast, then Diesel Sight in Florida is a good option to go with.
Absolutely. It's always nice to be able to go to their shop facility and actually have
well, it's nice to have them install it.
Exactly.
So, and then, Cody Erickson has a request for best injector for 425 on a late 99.
For 425, honestly, I would settle at the 400 mark, which is what we usually go with stage 1 injector. You can go with 160 up to a 180 cc injector at a stock injection nozzle, the injection rate nozzle. What's fantastic about those is you keep your EGTs in check very well. It's going to be still a great driver. It's going to be very usable. You can hook up to whatever you want to and tow whatever you want to. You don't sacrifice really much of anything in going with that combination. So if 425 is your option, like I said, I'd settle for 400. Go with the stage ones all day.
I think that's a good way to go. And somebody, okay, Scotty Derrick, 0273 Swamp Stage 1 single shots, adrenaline, and our tuning. Will the Wicked Wheel help to cool my EGTs and improve towing performance? And I would say absolutely. Like I said, most of the products that come out of diesel side, I've tested on our personal truck. And one of the things that I found quite interesting was running the stock turbo with stage 1 injectors and a 4-inch exhaust. My EGTs, I mean, my EGTs were still fairly reasonable. I was hitting a peak of about 32 PSI boost at full throttle with no changes to the tuning, no changes to the vehicle configuration or anything. The only thing I changed was adding the Wicked Wheel, the Wicked Wheel 2 onto the truck. My boost went up to 40 PSI. My EGTs dropped 150 degrees under load, and even pulling a trailer through South Carolina up to North Carolina, I was still seeing a solid 50 to 75 degree, even on some of the hills, 100 degree EGT drop. Cruise EGTs dropped. I mean, it was a fantastic addition to the vehicle, and certainly a whole lot cheaper than going with a modified turbo. Mm-hmm. And so again, that's one of the things that we recommend. If you're running stage 1 injectors, the Wicked Wheel is a good, inexpensive option, that good supporting mod for those kind of injectors, and you won't be disappointed with it.
Absolutely not. One thing to add to that, if you are wanting to go with a modified larger injector, look at the line from KC Turbo. They have got an option just about for any horsepower level up. I don't think we've ever had a single issue out of it that Charlie wasn't completely on the ball to solve immediately and get a new turbo sent out. Just absolutely fantastic company to work with.
Yeah, and actually, Charlie's watching us, so so call KC and hassle Charlie Fish. He'll be able to definitely take care of you. And so we've got one of his turbos on the Excursion right now. We're playing with a couple of different configurations. We've got another one coming out here probably later this month. We're going to try a few different things, but it's been running well so far. After we got the new injectors in it, and I went a little outside of the box on this one, and most people go 250/80s or 250/100s, and I went 250/30s. This one to see if I could actually get the volume out of the injectors with a smaller nozzle. I've always been of the opinion that going with the smallest nozzle you possibly can to keep the atomization up and keep the burn time out is a better way to go. And so far, it hasn't been a disappointment. We've been able to clean it up very well, and we'll see where that goes here over the next month or so. I need to get it on the dyno and get some dyno numbers, but just haven't had a chance to yet. So, well, any other questions we got in here?
Hey, Chris McDaniel, we are going to publish this video afterwards when it's all said and done. So you can start at the very beginning, work your way all the way through. And for those that are chiming in just now, I want to go ahead and introduce myself. I am Jay Chatham, working as one of the 7.3 Power Stroke tuners here, and the guy sitting beside me.
I'm Bill Coron. People like to call me the godfather of Power Stroke tuning. It's something that it's a name that others have bestowed upon me. I really try to avoid using it because I don't like feeling like it's a little arrogant, but
I use it like it's going out of business. He's too humble.
I have been, for those of you who don't know, I've been tuning Power Stroke since 1997. I'm originally started with Super Chips in 97, tuning F-150s and Power Strokes. The tunes that we wrote for the Power Strokes were the first, probably the first ones, I think, outside of Steve Cole at TTS. He was probably the very first one, and then we started doing it, and it's been a fun 20 years. The 7.3 has been a fantastic platform, and despite the fact that in 2003 everyone kept saying, "Oh, 7.3 is going to die. The 6 liter is going to take over, and no one's going to buy anything for the 7.3. And here we are, 18 years later, and people are still buying stuff for the 7.3, and it's just as strong as it's ever been. Especially the the products that have come out. I think one of the biggest things about it is as the trucks have become more affordable, more people are buying used trucks, and you find that they just stay in circulation. They've become a commodity. But one of the reasons that they've stayed popular is because there's plenty of people out there still building things for it, building, engine parts, intake parts, turbo kits, fuel injection. There's any number of quality aftermarket components to support these trucks. And that's just in the engine department. You start getting into the body lifts and anything, drivetrain related, these trucks are still just as hot. And, and I would, give just about anything for a good OBS truck. You look at these 95, 96, 97, there's some really clean ones out there, really good looking trucks. And so you guys rocking the OBS, you keep on, because that's such a fantastic body style.
I really do have some kind of a wicked fetish for a single cab long bed OBS.
Yeah, they're just a good looking truck. So, the 6 liters is followed along with the 7.3. When the 6 liters first came out and had gasket issues and all that stuff, and everyone started having a heart attack about it, and rightfully so. I mean, you spend a good amount of money on a truck, and the head gaskets start leaking. Well, there's no fun in that. And they really had a bad reputation for a long time, and people still make fun of it. But we've gotten to the point now where we know what it takes to make a 6 liter run. We know what it takes to make a 6 liter hold together, and it's gotten to the point now where it's so mainstream, it's not that expensive to do. A good head stud job, decked block, cleaned heads. And do not use the Cometic gaskets, or the black onyx gaskets.
Right. One thing in that regard that I would say, if you are in the situation where you have a 6 liter that does have a leaking head gasket, anytime you go to a shop, if you're looking for a shop to fix your 6 liter, do not go to a generic shop. Go to a Power Stroke specialty shop. And one of the things that I was told from early on, as soon as I first bought my truck, before I ever started even working for Bill or knew who he was, I was always told, whenever it does happen, if I walk into the shop and there's not at least one other Ford with a cab pulled up on it, walk back out. These shops, I mean, there's guys in here that have been doing this stuff for a long time, longer than I've been in the industry, that are just commenting and reading and listening. They can validate that these trucks, if you go to a Power Stroke specialty shop, you're going to see them. It's just the way to go. It really is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If it's just some mom and pop shop in the middle of nowhere and they don't have a lot of experience on what it takes to keep a Power Stroke held together, if they're not doing 1 or 2 trucks a day, then that's not where you want to take it.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing to say. I mean, there's probably some good techs out there, trying to start a business and may not have the clientele yet, but that's a difficult thing to get around. So, but definitely stick with the larger shops, especially ones that have a lot of Power Stroke experience, because it's going to save you a lot of time and effort in the long run.
So we've got Christina Coaster on here, 2000 F250. I have a TS6, but want a little more horsepower. So if I can go ahead and touch on that, the TS6 is a relatively decent platform for tuning Power Strokes. The big thing that you run into that is the user ability to modify tunes, especially once you get into the custom tuning market. Every time you want to have change any tunes on that chip, you're going to have to pull it out of the ECM, mail it off, wait for your tuner to make the revisions and changes. They mail it back. And at that point, you're really just crossing your fingers and hoping that the tuning is absolutely perfect on that one revision, which doesn't always happen. And so now you're mailing 2-3 days one way, 2-3 days back. And so at the best case scenario, each revision is going to take a week. So not that this is a direct question, but that's one of the reasons that we quit supporting the TS platform whenever we did come out with a Hydra chip, is our customers, whenever you have a customer going from the TS platform to the Hydra, they aren't unhappy. The ability to modify, change tuning inside of that chip is just absolutely phenomenal on the Hydra, where you can do what you want to. And plus, it's an open source platform where you can put whoever's tune on it, as long as they have the software to write the tunes, you can put it on there.
Or if if you're feeling a little adventurous, we sell the software, and you could use our tuning software and write your own tunes. And we have a lot of customers that do that. A lot of those are either people who just like to have a hands-on feel for their truck, and they want to handle every aspect of the way their truck runs, or a lot of the competition guys, the sled pull guys and drag race guys, the guys who are building the 1,000 horsepower trucks. Brian Jellish is one of those, who's also gotten into doing commercial tuning as well.
Jelly Built Performance.
Yep. And so there's definitely some options out there. There's a lot of tuners out there that tune for the Hydra. If you look on our dealers page on our website, you can find a lot of them on there. And that's a good way to go. So by any means, we're not knocking the TS. There's just some difficulties with it in regards to trying to get tunes to the customers that we've just gotten away from it. And with our Hydra chip being able to be reflashed online very easily, you get your tunes in a matter of hours, not days or weeks.
You just load them right on like you're loading files into a USB. One of the things to note, Bill and I, we keep referencing software, tuning software. The tuning software that we keep referencing, if you go to www.gopowerhungry.com, the software we're referring to is Minotaur. Minotaur software, it works for 7.3s, and we've released it out for some of the 6.0 stuff now.
And we actually will be releasing the FICM stuff here very soon. We've got all the definitions and stuff ready to go for the FICM. We're just finalizing the hardware and software platform to be able to load tunes onto a device and then be able to take that device and load it into your truck. That's the only delay that we have on that right now. But the software is currently ready to support the ECM, PCM, and FICMs on the 6 liters, and then the PCM strategies on all the 7.3s.
So we got Matt Amera. What would you recommend for a turbo with 238-100 injectors? I have a Hypermax H2E now.
Actually, the Hypermax H2E is not a bad turbo for that setup.
Not at all.
Unless you're just looking to change and want to try something different, that's not a bad setup. The H2E is a fairly solid turbo. The only complaint anybody's ever had with it is in certain applications, it's a little slow to spool. It may be a little laggy, but otherwise it's a solid turbo. I wouldn't look at changing that unless you just really wanted to try something else. But what I would recommend that you do is I would call KC Turbos and talk to Charlie and say, this is the setup I have. This is what I'm looking to achieve. I want to tow with it. I want to race. Whatever it is that you want to do. And he's got such a wide variety of turbos that are very specifically built for certain applications, different injector modifications and stuff like that. He'd be able to better advise you on what direction to go with that. And that would be my recommendation. If it was me personally, I probably wouldn't even change the H2E. I would just leave it. So,
hey Chris, glad you could join us. Hopefully Texas is doing well for you.
We got some funny people on here.
Oh yeah.
I hesitate to say this because we sell SCT, but live link looked like it was coded by high schoolers. I'm sorry, that made me laugh.
I was gonna skip right past that.
No, I was going to until I started laughing about it, and then I had to say something. But let's see, what else do we have here? What difference can I possibly expect to see in power and exhaust cleanliness going from 175/75 to 205/30 injectors? KC Stage 2 VGT. Just dropping the nozzle size is gonna give you a tremendous improvement in smoke reduction, because your atomization is going to go up. You'll get a much cleaner burn, and 205/30s are a solid injector.
600 horse injector.
Yeah, they are. You'll have absolutely no problem with those. They make great power. They again, going to a smaller nozzle is going to extend out your burn rate, which gives you a much broader, flatter torque curve. You start getting into large nozzle injectors, you get a huge peak of fuel at the beginning of the injection event, and then there's not much to follow it. So all your injection event occurs right around top dead center, and then there's no push as the piston's going back down the cylinder. That's not good for torque. It's good for high horsepower, but it just, so especially if you're towing or anything like that. The other nice thing is, if you are towing, it keeps your trailer cleaner. Nobody likes to wipe soot off the side of their trailer. That is an absolute nightmare.
With the injector sizes, as some of you guys know that have been on the forums before Facebook groups were really a big thing, I've had probably, I'd say 6 sets of injectors, various sizes. I've had 175s, 190s, 30s, 75, 190 75s. I've gone to 205s, 225s, and back up, down, around, and just trying everything out in a combination of nozzle sizes between 75s, 100s, 50s, 30s, stocks. In my opinion, my truck, it's an 0660. In my opinion, the favorite combination that I had, or the 2 favorite combinations I had, was 190/30 injectors. And I was running the KC Stage 3 Turbo at that point, which is a 68 millimeter inducer. Fantastic combination. This was back just a few years into my time here with Bill. But back whenever we would go to events and Bill was racing a single cab, we'd end up taking my truck to use as a tow rig to drag his wherever we went to race that weekend. And the 190/30 injectors with that KC Turbo absolutely ran fantastic, even towing approximately 10,000 pounds.
Now we did play with the shifting a little bit on that trip. Yeah. When we went up, but it was just a couple little torque converter issues, being able to keep the torque converter locked under heavier load and stuff like that. But yeah, it ran fantastic. Yeah, and there's no smoke. It was just as clean as could be.
Well, even the converter stuff we changed, it wasn't from necessity by any means, but we were wanting to set the cruise control at 70, and that was just happened to be a weird spot on a big hill, so we had to tweak it just a little bit, which is the ability you have whenever you have Minotaur. Shameless plug right there, but absolutely it's a fantastic way to go. And then the second half of the injectors, the other way I would end up going, which is what I run now, my injectors, I've had displaced up to 225 cc's, and I've removed the aftermarket nozzles out and gone down to the stock nozzles, running that with a stage 2 turbo from KC. Fantastic combination. I regularly hook up to 20,000 pounds.
Well, especially now that you're doing the tree business, hauling that little Bobcat and your equipment around, that's pretty heavy.
So. Oh yeah. We're pulling a 30-foot trailer with a skid steer and at least a 70-foot tree on top of that. But it does fantastic. I stick to the 100 horsepower tune. Keep a very loose eye on my EGTs, but as long as I drive relatively decent, they'll stay right around 900, 950. It's not an issue at all down here.
So Zach Davis had asked what the EBP was after I'd put the wheel on. My EBP was actually about 48 to 50 psi when I did the math out on it. My ratio, my boost to back pressure ratio was about 1.15 or something like that. It was really, really low. And like I said, my EGTs were good. I couldn't have asked for a better combination. I kind of wish I'd never got rid of that turbo, but I ended up playing with some different stuff, and then we ended up selling the truck. So unfortunately, I don't have that one anymore, but that was a good running truck. I miss that little red truck.
Another thing to mention for the new guys that are coming into the video stream now, again, I am Jay Chatham, one of the 7.3 tuners, and this is Bill, owner and founder of Power Hungry here. Both of us, Bill has an immense amount of knowledge, more than anyone that I've ever encountered as far as a 7.3 and the depths of it. So any questions you guys have about it, bring them on.
Oh, and just to address Ralph Parsonetz, Mannequin over here, in case you're wondering, his name is Max Powers. He's been a fixture at Power Hungry. For anybody who's ever been here has seen him lurking in a corner somewhere or
Scaring the crap out of you.
Yeah. And it's been very fun having him around. He used to model our shirts, but then we've decided, we're much better looking than that. So, so we model them now. But anyway, so that explains the mannequin. What else do we have here? We got a lot. Well, yeah, I'm trying to scroll through, and
I'm getting caught on Keener's comment.
How did you get that manly beard, Jackson? Well, first you have to be a man. So
there it is.
Yep. Yeah. He actually, I wasn't paying him enough, and he couldn't afford razors. So yeah.
Now we're here.
Yeah. So here we are. Can we ever expect to see switch on the fly tunes for 6.0? The reality is there is such a beast. It's not anything I would run. Somebody making faces over there?
Nope.
The switch on the fly, Bully Dog for years has had switch on the fly capability for the 6-liter. The problem with it is it's not a significant enough change, and from what we've seen, it only addresses engine output. It doesn't address anything as far as shifting goes. So as you increase the power output, the power change happens so fast that the transmission does not have adequate time to relearn before if you're jumping up and down in positions, and ends up just not being good for the transmission. Because of the way the 6-liter ECM is, it's not a feasible. It's not ever going to be like the 7.3. There's not going to be any way we can just immediately change positions and switch to a completely new tune. The mapping that Bully Dog has used, it's only a couple of simple maps that are readdressed, and it does make a power change. But again, it's not anything that we've ever particularly enjoyed using. And it's the same for the 6.4. They use the same method. They have a couple of separate maps that are mapped out for fueling and stuff like that, and it doesn't really address anything in the transmission. So you're taking a chance on that by using a switch on the fly stuff, where you're considerably better off just going with a full-on tune. If you need to change tunes, just stop and change it. I know the 03, 04 6-liters are a little bit of a bug to change power levels on, because it takes like 4 or 5 minutes to change your power levels. But the 6-liters can usually be power levels can be changed. The 05, 07 6-liter can be changed usually in less than a minute. So it's not that inconvenient, and most people will find one tune they like and they don't change it anyway. So there's not a lot of reason to worry about shift on the fly in that respect. I do understand why people like it, but there's not really any practical reason for it.
Even to that regard, I mean, 2 years ago, whenever you handed over the tuning for the 6.0 to me, me having a 6.0, and this is one of the things that I ended up facing, because of the longest time I was wanting shift on the fly. I wanted the ability to go from my street tune directly to a tow file. And one of the largest things that I took influence in whenever I was designing some of these 6-liter tunes that we're distributing now is the ability to have light throttle that functions as a tow tune. It doesn't really wake up and really get your power in your what I call a street tune until you're half throttle and above, which is an area that you shouldn't be towing in anyway. So the tunes that we have, even the 100 horsepower tune that I'm using on my truck, it functions very much so as a hybrid, pending on throttle position.
That's a really good approach to that. For daily driving, you can get a good daily driving feel out of a single tune, and then still have plenty of power on the top end once you get up over half throttle. There's no reason to really deal with multiple tunes in that respect, unless you have a specific need. Tow tunes are one of the few exceptions, because with tow tunes you deal with a wide range of throttle, depending on load, depending on terrain, especially if you're going up in the mountains. I do like to see tow specific tunes, but as far as a daily driver tune that has a performance top end, that's something you can kind of combine both into one tune and not really have to sacrifice anything. So
Brent Fingal, I've got you here. Best oversized injector for a stock 2007-3. In order to keep the cast strolling through, I'm actually going to skip over that question, but we've answered it 2 or 3 times already. If you would please, once we publish it, go back and watch the video. A lot of that stuff's going to be covered.
Yeah, it'll be at the beginning and where we're talking about stage 1 injectors and those combinations. So that's where you're going to want to go on that. Bob Wells, not to belabor transmission questions, but I have a stock excursion, about to add a 38R in tunes. Transmission stock with about 250,000 miles. God bless you for getting one to last 250,000 miles. And it will not let me see the rest of his question.
He says here, do you think adding an aftermarket valve body would provide any additional insurance to the life of the transmission?
I actually like running aftermarket valve bodies. I like to let the transmission handle as much of the stuff mechanically as possible. We've used BTS valve bodies in the past. We've used John Wood valve bodies in the past. And again, even Diesel Site now offers, they have valve body kits as well. And it's a good way to go. It in the long run, it's good, cheap insurance. Well, not cheap, but inexpensive, relatively inexpensive insurance. The hard thing about, transmissions is there's no gauge on the transmissions that says how your clutches are wearing, other than, if you're sharp enough to be able to smell your transmission fluid and smell if it's burnt. But generally, if you're changing your transmission fluid regularly, change your filter regularly, and just keep an eye on things and don't abuse it, transmissions will last a good long time. You can get 250,000 miles out of it.
Mm-hmm. Make sure you don't overheat them.
Yeah, overheating, a valve body and an additional cooler is a very popular recommendation for that. To go with a 6 or 8 pass transmission cooler will do wonders in extending the life of your transmission because it'll drop the operating temps of it. The hotter those transmissions get, the faster everything wears out, and the more trouble you're going to run into down the road as far as longevity. So I would definitely recommend looking at a valve body, and then you may have to have the valve body redone at some point if you go with a fully built transmission. Depending on how the clutch packs are set up and stuff like that, depending on who builds the transmission, but they'd be able to advise you what to do with the valve body at that point.
We've got Jim Niemoller, excuse me if I mispronounce your last name, looking for an honest, usable 300 horsepower towing setup without EGT issues on an 0373. What would you suggest?
First thing, 4-inch exhaust.
Absolutely.
Second thing, billet wheel. And then standard tunes will get you a 300 usable horsepower without a problem. So that would be a very good combination. The exhaust is not expensive. They're about $180, $200 for a 4-inch exhaust.
Yeah, you can get it depending on brand, whether you want a 4-inch straight pipe like a Diamond Die,
right?
Which will be on your lower end of cost. Or if you go with something that has a muffler in it, that's your T409, like a Silverline exhaust. Those range up to about $500-$600, but somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, in the past, just because I have a relationship with them, we've bought our exhaust systems from Little Power Shop up in Pennsylvania. John Anderson's a great guy. A little history about John Anderson. He is actually, when I started Diesel Power back in 2000, when I first moved to North Carolina, John Anderson was my first customer.
Really?
I drove up to Ohio. I met him at a dyno event in the top of Ohio. I was so close to Canada, I probably could have thrown a rock and hit it. It was a dead middle of winter. There was snow on the ground, and we were in the sketchiest little dyno shop. It had wood floors that they were anchoring the trucks to, and I would swear it was going to rip the floors right out of the place. It was scary.
Oh, that gives me anxiety just hearing.
Yeah, it was. And then it was a brick wall and then a drop. So if the truck came loose, you were going for a nice little trip.
Whew.
Anyway, so I met John there, and this is after I had chatted with him quite a bit on the phone, and back and forth with email. And he was actually the first significantly modified truck that I had tuned and has the distinction of being our first customer ever.
That's awesome.
So, and John's a great guy, and him and his wife Pam have been fantastic, and we've been up there a few times over the years to visit and do some dyno tuning and stuff. But anyway, we do, we've gotten exhaust systems from them. They have really good prices. So, if you're looking for something like that, definitely give them a shout and see what they can do for you.
Charlie Fish chimed in saying, will your new 6.0 Ficum tuning be something that will easily be emailed to customers and loaded?
Yes. Yeah, the way we're setting it up, it's actually going to be very much like the Pegasus setup we have now with our old 6-liter and 7.3 and F-150 tuners on our Griffin platform. So, the customer would have the programmer. You can email them files, and then they can load them on. The files would be serially encoded to work on that device. So, so there's no distribution of files, except for the customer that paid for them. But yeah, that's exactly how that's going to work. And hopefully we should have it ready here in the next probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks. We've been trying to get through a few other little things here, get cleaned up and get some stuff off our plate. But the hardest part was getting the definitions for the Minotaur software working. And once we got that done, now it's just trying to get the hardware working. So, but yeah, look for that probably here in the next month.
So scrolling down, Riken chiming in. A minute ago, I was speaking about all of the various injector sizes and things that I've had. Riken saying that I can vouch for the numbers of the injector sizes. Riken was the one who modified every injector size over and over and over again.
Yeah. I see how you conveniently didn't mention to people how many engines and transmissions you've had in that truck, though.
It's been used for a lot of R&D.
Yes, it has. So, well, and then you may want to explain to people the reason for the initial teardown. How meth?
Oh, meth is bad. Do not do meth.
So, water meth in large quantities. Water meth in small quantities is fine, especially if it's properly atomized before it goes into the engine. Water meth in large quantities, in large droplets, as it's being drawn into the engine, has a tendency to wash the oil off your cylinder walls. And it makes for an expensive repair. So we've run different water meth kits. Snow Performance is what I had on my truck, and you went with
alcohol injection system.
Yeah, AIS, and both of them are great systems. But there's more to planning the layout than you really think about. The further upstream you can install the nozzles to give it time to atomize. In fact, even installing it upstream in front of the intercooler, because as it draws heat through the intercooler, the fluid will vaporize, but it'll also draw heat out of the intercooler, and then get drawn into the engine. You just don't want droplets being sucked into the engine. That's absolutely going to destroy it, and we found that out firsthand, unfortunately.
They say whenever adding a water meth kit, you can expect about a 25 to a 50 horsepower increase of power given the ratio of meth to water you run. At the day where I ended up completely destroying a cylinder inside of my motor, it was at a dyno competition, and there was a 6-liter, Greg Kunkel, if he's in here. My truck was in second place at the competition. It was first place for over half, 3/4 of it. Greg came in with I believe it was a single turbo 6.4, and beat me by about 20, 30 horsepower, and that was it.
But you still held the top on it for the highest 6.0.
Yes, I did, but I wanted the highest of all. So at that point, turned around, added more fuel to it or more methanol, and ended up going up to about 100 horsepower shot with the water meth. That 100 horsepower shot, A, didn't win me the competition, and B, cost me a motor. So do not do that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. And try to see if we can get through 1 or 2 more questions here. Charlie Fish, do you think your new Ficum tuning is going to open up and help run bigger 6.0 injectors cleaner like the 7.3 guys experienced? That's exactly what we expect to happen. The Ficum tuning is an integral part of 6-liter tuning. It's been overlooked in the past because there has not been a lot of options for it. But one of the key maps in the 7.3 tuning is the injector injector pulse width table that controls pulse width based on injection pressure and volume of fuel desired. That map does not exist in the 6.0 ECM. It only exists in the FICM. So being able to have access to that, along with a few other small things, the RPM limiters and stuff like that, is going to be completely instrumental in helping the 6.0 guys being able to run stronger, run cleaner, and without having to spoof the ICP sensor like everybody does nowadays. That's the only way we've been able to get the pulse width up on the 6.0 was to make the FICM and the ECM think that the ICP is lower than what it actually is and artificially raise the pulse width. This, now you can actually tune the vehicle the way it needs to be without having to trick anything. You got some funny people in here.
Mm-hmm. There's some real comedians.
What flavor margarita would you recommend while driving a 6.4?
That was the guy that was with us that one night.
Yeah. Oh, man. So, are custom tunes worth buying for a daily driven OBS? If the truck is stock, no. I wouldn't spend the money on it. The can tunes work, our can tunes work very well. We've got a lot of other tuners out there that do offer their version of can tunes that are very inexpensive. But for the most part, unless you've modified it, there's not a lot of reason to go outside of the can tunes. And what else do we have? Anything else interesting?
Kyle, we got you, brother. Let's see. So Kyle said, I'm currently getting 10 miles per gallon and have no limits, 4-inch exhaust, EGR, DPF delete, live wire plus. Well, first of all, we do not tune 6.4s. Anything EPA regulated, we completely stay away from. There's entirely too much liability, and frankly, I enjoy my job a lot more than I enjoy.
And I enjoy actually owning a business and not being out on the street. So, yeah, unfortunately, until EPA regulations get resolved, 6.4 and 6.7 tuning. I mean, we could do 6.4 tuning and 6.7 tuning and not touch the DPF stuff, but it's still a risk. It's not worth the aggravation that we end up having to deal with, as far as having to try to jump through hoops and prove to the EPA that we're not doing anything underhanded, and we just don't want to deal with that. So until the EPA eventually gets itself settled down, we're just not going to offer anything for that. And we do apologize to everyone for that. I mean, I know it's a huge market, and we get requests daily for it, but it's just something we can't handle. So anyway, well, I think that's about it. Our time is up. We do appreciate y'all coming out. Hope you had a good time. And if you do have any questions, our website is www.gopowerhungry.com. Our phone number is 678-890-1110. I am Bill Coron, and
I'm Jay. Another thing to add to that, if you have any questions and you prefer email, send to dylan@phptune.com.
Oh, that's a cheap shot. Have a good one.
See you guys.